US President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are set to hold their first phone conversation since the death of 8 workers from the World Central Kitchen in Gaza. Mr. Biden has already voiced frustration over the impact Israeli operations have had on civilians in Gaza. The attack that Israel says was a mistake adds to international pressure already on Mr. Netanyahu. Canberra has been demanding an explanation over how Australian aid worker Zomi Francom was killed in Gaza. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the IDF's explanation is not acceptable.
I have demanded full accountability for what has occurred. They have committed to a full and proper investigation. I want that to be transparent, and I want those findings to be made public so that we find out how exactly this can occur. What we know is that there have been too many innocent lives lost in Gaza.
The US-based food charity World Central Kitchen confirmed earlier this week that 7 of its 8 workers were killed in an Israeli strike. 2 workers included citizens of Australia, Poland, the United Kingdom and Palestinian nationals. Humanitarian watchdog Aid Worker Security Database reports that at least 203 aid workers have been killed in Israeli attacks since the outbreak of conflict in Gaza. And for more, Sarah Coates joins us live from Tel Aviv. Sarah, this first phone call between Mr. Biden and Mr. Netanyahu since that aid convoy was struck on Monday, what can we expect?
Highway Sue, this will undoubtedly be extremely tense. It is expected to happen in the coming hours amid this growing rift between Israel and Washington. Now, Axios is reporting, quoting senior US officials, are saying that the temperature regarding Netanyahu is very high, saying that Netanyahu has repeatedly been ignoring the president, Joe Biden. And we've been seeing this over the last few months. There have been calls by Joe Biden for Israel not to go down into that southern city of Rafah. He's been calling that a red line. But what we've been hearing from the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is complete defiance. He's been saying, we will go there, rather. He also, remember, pulled that delegation from that trip to Washington to discuss alternatives to Rafah. That ended up happening virtually, but certainly there is growing anger between the Washington and Israel over Israel's conduct during this war. We also do need to remember that this call that's coming in the next few hours is on the back of yet another call between the Pentagon chief and the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, with Lloyd Austin telling Gallant that he is furious, saying that concrete steps need to be taken to protect these aid workers in Gaza. Now, since October 7, more than 200 aid workers have been killed in the Palestinian enclave. And this, of course, is really disrupting this vital mechanism of getting this desperately, critically needed aid to these people in the Strip who are on the brink of famine. That is according to aid groups. Wei-Su.
Sarah, these 203 reported deaths of aid workers. Now, when the UN chief responded to this latest attack on the aid convoy, he called it unconscionable, but he also said it is inevitable given the way the war is currently being conducted. So we are likely to see, if things do not change, more deaths as we saw on Monday. Does Israel risk losing more support if we see more incidents as we have done this week and the 203 prior to that?
It certainly does, and really we are already seeing that way. So just today there are calls from the United Kingdom for it to stop weapons supply to Israel. Lawyers, around 600 or so of them, actually penning a letter to the government. And we've also heard from the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. He held a call with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He said that the situation is becoming increasingly intolerable, saying that he is absolutely appalled by this attack. Now, tomorrow, the United Nations Human Rights Council will consider a draft resolution on a weapons embargo to Israel. It's also condemning starvation as a weapon of war. We've also heard from Oxfam today. It came out to say that Palestinians in Gaza are surviving on less than 250 calories per day. And just to put that into perspective, that is around the same amount of calories in a can of beans. So certainly extremely concerning. And the situation is expected to get even more dire given what has happened on Monday night and given that now these aid groups are pulling their operations from Gaza. We know that the World Central Kitchen has already turned these boats laden with hundreds of tons of aid back. They've since arrived back in Cyprus. The UN also suspending its nighttime operations. So this is creating an absolutely catastrophic situation in the Gaza Strip, which really can only be expected to worsen.
Thanks for that, Sarah Courts, speaking to us live from Tel Aviv.